Built shortly before World War II, Yamato was the heaviest and most powerfully armed battleship ever constructed. In World of Warships, it was one of the original tech tree battleships, and the in-game representation attempts to match what was built in the real world. She's a capable tank with accurate and devastating 460mm main guns. So let's dig into the IJN Tier 10 tech tree battleship, Yamato. So let's kick things off with Yamato's offensive tools. There's a lot to be said about Yamato's 460mm main guns and their enormous armor-piercing shells. For a long time, they were the biggest guns in the game, and the game kind of grew up around them. While there are now larger guns available, the fact remains that Yamato's accurate, long-range guns are still among the most capable damage dealers available. With a stock range of 26.6 kilometers and an available spotting plane consumable, players looking to maximize Yamato's guns are free to ignore range and focus on reload and accuracy instead. And this decision will be made in Modification Slot 6. You can choose Main Battery Modification 3, which results in a reload of 26.4 seconds and a maximum dispersion of 256 meters. Or you can choose Main Battery Director System, which is the unique upgrade available through the Research Bureau, which means the reload is 30 seconds, but now with a maximum dispersion of 238 meters. No matter which one you choose, Yamato is a threat to land devastating strikes on any ship from nearly anywhere on the map. So now let's talk about Yamato's defensive tools. While it's worth mentioning that Yamato's torpedo belt is fantastic, it does have a 55% damage reduction. It's also to be noted that torpedo protection should always be a backup plan. So instead, I'm going to focus on what you can actively do to make the ship's defenses work well for you. If you're doing your job, you're going to get shot at in Yamato. It's a huge, slow ship that is prone to fires, so dodging is really out of the question. Instead, use your gun range and accuracy, along with good reload, to punish anyone firing at you. With a couple of well-placed salvos, you can eliminate enemy ships altogether, or at least make them scramble for cover. Additionally, your armor is excellent when angled, but it's weak when broadside. You should use this to your advantage. Maintaining an angle of 20 degrees means that you have 410 millimeters of belt armor. Since enemy ship angles are sometimes hard to read, you can use angles to entice enemy battleships to aim for your side, where you can bounce shells. If all else fails, sit directly nose into enemies while reversing and use only your front guns. So now let's talk about Yamato's support tools. Well-played battleships should always focus on being imposing, and Yamato is designed to be great at it. If Yamato is keeping guns on an area and landing accurate shots, everyone on the enemy team will be forced to pay attention. Don't be afraid to throw armor-piercing shells at nose-on battleships if that's the only shot you have. While they will do some damage because the shells are just enormous, they will also keep that ship from adjusting position. You should pin down enemy ships and let your teammates reposition for better shots. You should also pay attention to attracting and deflecting enemy fire for your team. Now, this is what we call tanking. Yamato is very hard to damage when angled, whether facing towards or away from enemies. So position her at a comfortable firing range, you could think around 18 kilometers, to keep some of the fire-starting ships inaccurate or out of range. Then, work to maintain good angles against larger enemy ships. Remember, if you keep enemies firing at you, you're keeping them from firing at friendlies. So what do you want to do with Yamato? How do you combine Yamato's tools? My opinion is that you should use the ship to maintain an obvious and imposing presence on the map. Use your guns and your devastating armor-piercing shells early and often to force enemy ships into hiding, cover, or defensive positions. Then use those guns and shells mid-match to destroy ships as they attempt to reposition. Always have an escape plan, such as an island you can duck behind or enough range to become unspotted. This is just in case you end up with too many fires on deck. Then you can escape, repair, and get back to being a menace. Some of the best moments in Yamato are enormous cross-map hits, so don't become target obsessed and miss out on them. Always be on the lookout for ships who are playing a different flank and are poorly angled against you. When you see a broadside ship not paying attention, don't be afraid to put some shells into their citadel. So what do you want to avoid while playing Yamato? Yamato is slow and huge in all ways, and its guns have horrible turret traverse even when you attempt to spec for it. Because of all these things, you really have to pay attention to your positioning. The goal is to push forward enough to be menacing, but not so far that you can't reposition somewhat safely. If you find yourself overcommitted, and it's really easy to do, just begin reversing back into a more favorable position immediately. So how do you want to fight against Yamato? Well, Yamato's biggest weaknesses are an inability to reposition and slow turret traverse. Your goal should be to light fires and cause floods early to wear Yamato down and force an attempt to reposition. During a turn, Yamato will often expose a vulnerable broadside. When that happens, aim for the citadel at the waterline just behind the second turret. A Yamato on the move also gives faster ships an opportunity to flank and close distance, leading to close quarters brawling where Yamato is at a disadvantage. So what's my overall opinion on Yamato? Well, Yamato has been around for a long time in World of Warships, and it remains an aspirational ship for a lot of players, whether it's because they appreciate naval history or they just want to make pixels explode in the most efficient manner possible. It would be really hard for me to say anything about Yamato that hasn't been said by someone else already. So I'll just say that I really enjoy the ship, and I believe it is still worth working to get. Unfortunately, the tech tree line that you traverse to get to Yamato has been showing its age more than Yamato. It's pretty hit or miss, and there really isn't a lot in that line that prepares you for Yamato. You go from Amagi, which is a battle cruiser at tier 8, to Izumo, a fire-prone ship with all forward 410mm guns, to Yamato. Now, you can learn to make all three of those ships work, but the approach is very different between the three of them. So, have some patience once you get to Yamato and take some time to understand how it works. Once you get it, Yamato is still one of the best battleships for people who like to blow up enemies with enormous main guns. So what's the takeaway? The tech tree line is rough, but Yamato is a great, rewarding ship to have at tier 10. Plus, the guns sound amazing.